In the Antarctic Ocean, 28 people were aboard a ship, but their ship had become trapped amid millions of tons of ice. They had already spent 7 months standing in the same place. During this time, one night they suddenly heard a loud sound from beneath the ship, and the ship tilted to one side. It felt as if something had pushed the ship forcefully from below. What happened next was beyond anything they could have imagined. Welcome once again to Think and Grow with Hamden Videos. Viewers, the Antarctic Ocean where waves tower like skyscrapers, winds roar at nearly 100 kilometers per hour, and the water temperature is so cold that human blood can begin to freeze. Traveling through this ocean is nothing short of inviting death. Even if someone manages to survive the brutal cold and violent waves, massive icebergs, each the size of a mountain, can crush a ship without mercy. Yet, 111 years ago, when ships and technology were nowhere near today's standards, a group of 28 men became trapped in this fearsome sea. Under the open sky, they survived, not just weeks or months, but an unbelievable 2 whole years. Everywhere they looked only endless ice, raging winds, dwindling food supply, and absolutely no way to call for help. This is the survival tale the world remembers as the greatest survival story of all time. At the heart of this story is Sir Ernest Shackleton, an explorer determined to push the limits of human capability. That is why he named his ship Endurance. He had attempted several dangerous expeditions before. In 1901, he joined a mission to reach Antarctica but had to return from 750 kilometers away. Again in 1907, he got close but had to turn back just 150 kilometers before reaching the pole. But in 1914, his plan was far more ambitious, not only to reach Antarctica but to cross it from one side to the other on foot. Something no human had ever achieved. The mission was called the Imperial Transantarctic Expedition because it was so dangerous. Hardly anyone wanted to join. So Shackleton's first struggle was gathering a team. He published an advertisement in the Times newspaper. Men wanted for hazardous journey. The ad bluntly stated, low wages, extreme cold, months of darkness, constant danger, and no promise of safe return. Shackleton wanted only those who truly feared nothing. Soon, he recruited 27 men. He had been planning the journey for 4 years, but as departure approached, events took a turn. World War I broke out. Many assumed the mission would be cancelled, but Britain, surprisingly, allowed it to proceed. This expedition needed an extraordinarily strong ship capable of breaking Antarctic ice. Fortunately, a Norwegian company had already built such a ship. Shackleton bought it and named it, made of powerful American oak and designed to withstand the crushing force of ice. The ship had both sails and an engine. Finally, on the 8th of August 1914, Endurance departed from Plymouth, England. For 4 months they traveled across the Atlantic, stopping in Argentina and then at South Georgia Island. After final preparations, on the 5th of December 1914, they headed for the Weddell Sea. Along with the 28 men, they carried 50 strong dogs, meant for pulling sledges across Antarctica. For 46 days the journey went smoothly, and they were only 1 day away from reaching the Antarctic coast when, on the 18th of January 1915, disaster hit. The ice in the Weddell Sea thickened rapidly up to 18 feet. In some places, and Endurance could no longer break through. They were still 130 kilometers short of their starting point, but completely frozen in place. They tried 4 weeks to free the ship, even cutting ice by hand. After exhausting efforts, they managed to move the ship only 300 meters before it got stuck again. After a month of failures, on the 14th of February 19, Shackleton gave up trying and decided to let the natural drift of the ice move the ship, hoping the ice would break as winter ended. Meanwhile, the crew followed a routine, talking, playing soccer, cutting hair, cooking, waiting for the ice to shift. They grew close to each other and even formed emotional bonds with the animals. In April 1915, the ice finally began to crack, but instead of freeing them, the pressure increased. Giant slabs of ice pressed hard against the ship. The crew worked for weeks removing ice. Baton 14 July 1915. A terrifying crack resounded from below, and Endurance by morning, they discovered the worst. The pressure had destroyed the rudder. Now, after 7 months trapped, they were over 2,000 kilometers away from any human settlement. On the 18th of October 1915, 9 months after being stuck, a massive pressure wave slammed the ship, tipping it 30 degrees. Cracks appeared everywhere and water began to seep in. They worked non-stop all night, but there was no saving the ship. On the 27th of October 1915, Shackleton ordered everyone to abandon it. They removed essential supplies, food, dogs, lifeboats, bedding, and set up camp on the ice. The ship that had sheltered them for months was now being crushed and slowly sinking. They had no idea how long they could survive on drifting ice. Shackleton chose to march toward Paulet Island, 550 kilometers away, where old supply huts once existed. But small lifeboats were too risky if eyes could destroy a ship like Endurance. Tiny boats stood no chance, so they began walking across the ice. The next 6 months were full of life-threatening challenges. The ice they slept on often cracked or floated away. Luckily, the drifting ice moved in the direction of Paulet Island, so Shackleton chose to stay with it. Food supplies ran out. They hunted penguins and seals to survive. By February 1916, after 13 months, they were surviving on just 1 biscuit a day. Eventually, they had to kill their dogs for food. Their ice floe then changed direction and drifted toward Elephant Island instead of Paulet Island. Storms grew stronger. Temperatures dropped to 20 grados bajo cero, and many suffered severe frostbite. Their tongues and lips were so swollen that swallowing food hurt. By April 1916, after haunting struggles, they finally reached Elephant Island, the first solid land they had touched in 16 months. But the island was barren and offered no long-term survival. Their final hope was South Georgia Island, 1,300 kilometers away. Shackleton picked a handful of men and set out in a small lifeboat on the 24th of April 1916, beginning an extremely dangerous journey through one of the world's deadliest seas. Waves rose 90 feet high. The cold was unbearable, and they navigated using only the stars and sun. No GPS, no proper compass. At best, they managed 80 kilometers a day. After 16 grueling days, on the 10th of May 1916, they reached South Georgia on the wrong side. Towering 4,000-foot mountains blocked their path. After climbing non-stop for 36 hours, they reached the whaling station. Shackleton looked so weak and worn out that workers didn't recognize him. No one believed the man who vanished almost a year and a half earlier had survived. 3 days later, he set out to rescue the remaining 22 men on Elephant Island. After several failed attempts, on the 30th of August 1916, he finally saw smoke rising from the island signal fires from the crew. He had no idea how many were alive, but unbelievably, every single one had survived. They had left England on the 8th of August 1914. After 2 years and 22 days, Shackleton brought all his men home safely. Though he never achieved his goal of crossing Antarctica, his survival story earned him a legendary place in history greater than any mission success. 107 years later, in 2022, the remains of Endurance were finally discovered deep in the Antarctic Ocean, astonishingly well preserved, with its name still clearly visible.